I'm Dean Deal.
And I'm Steve Hoskins.
And you're listening to This Is the Good Life, a podcast devoted to deciphering what it means to live as a Christian in this day and age.
And not just a Christian, but as philosophers, theologians, and maybe even decent golfers.
And a marketing guy.
Yeah, used to be a marketing guy.
Yeah, so speak for yourself. As two longtime college professors, we share a common goal to bring virtue and character back into the conversation of what it means to be Christian.
We'll do this by unpacking the thoughts of both our current culture and prominent philosophers like Aristotle, Kant, Descartes, and a guy called Jesus Christ.
You'll find that some pretty old thinkers had some pretty good ideas.
So join us for a conversation worth having about a life worth living.
After all, this is the good life. Well, Steve, we saved the best for last. And by best, meaning the toughest one.
Toughest, most meaningful.
Yes.
Maybe the one that is the. We keep talking about telos. We keep talking about purpose. Aristotle says summum bonum, which I always like more, but it sounds really, just doesn't sound telosy. But this, so like, if you get into these great discussions about the virtues, and when I found the virtues, I found a life. I was 20 years old. I was looking for my fourth major at college. I'm at Trevecca. I've changed my major 3 times. I'm just looking for something that's interesting, something that's actually going to take up the rest of my life.
And you couldn't major in Circle K.
I couldn't major in Circle K, although I tried.
You did.
And I came to the existential crisis the day that I turned 20 in Benson Dorm. And so this is 1983, May the 8th. I get out of bed, slightly the worse for wear, and I realize I have no plans.
Yeah,
I don't have anything, and I find the books, I find theology, I find all this, and all of a sudden there's this great conversation about meaningfulness in life, the good life, the virtuous life, the summum bonum, things that I have been set up to do that I didn't know. I'm okay with languages. I read the great books of the Western world. So when somebody refers to Homer or whatever, I read Homer. Okay, all this stuff. And you get into these great lectures on the 4 cardinal virtues: justice, courage, temperance, and I always miss prudence. Thank you. Wisdom. It's the one I always leave out. That was a joke. It was meant for you and my wife. They're called hinge virtues. They're the virtues that get you to the important things.
Yes.
To the important. And you stop and think, so what's the greatest of all Christian virtues? We had this discussion going on throughout, if you've been listening to podcasts. Me, I'm for obedience. I was trained by the monks. Okay, I spent 3 years with them, changed my life, I realized that all of my seminary training had been done by monks who were spies. They called themselves Nazarenes, but they were actually monks. And so we have these discussions. What's the greatest of the virtues?
And I'm at obedience. I just call it devotion.
You call it devotion, but some people
because I don't like the obedience word.
Right. But some people go for more intellectual virtues. That tractability, the idea of being teachable. Mm-hmm. Some people go with patience, and they're smart enough when they talk to people like me to say that patience, the virtue of patience, is about the creation of the perfect world. It's hope. Yeah. And I go, yeah, okay, I'm into that.
Hope's pretty good.
Hope's pretty good. But when it comes down to it, and you realize that one of the things about this conversation, one of the criticisms all of us have about ourselves who get into this and realize the virtuous life can lead to a lot of things we've talked about, is that there has to be something constantly present in the virtuous life, in the pursuit of the virtues, and in thinking about our lives well lived, about being good disciples. There has to be something there that names God that we can't corrupt. We can't turn into
make money at.
Make money at. Yeah, I mean, I was going to say make it bad. You can't make Bible reading mad, but you can make a lot of money on it, and then you corrupt it. And I think that's mercy. I think mercy is like that thing that is there at the end of the road,
It certainly separates the narrative that we live into from just about every other narrative if you fully understand mercy. Now, compassion, there's a lot of narratives out there that talk about compassion.
Yeah.
But that compassion, when you really listen to the story being told, is I feel good about myself when I have compassion towards others and my desire to be a good person.
And Thomas Aquinas, famously, when you read, this stuff about mercy and the virtue of mercy, the way that we've softened Aquinas is he says, this is the compassion, mercy is the compassion that fills the heart, that impels you toward the suffering of someone else. This is sort of like a standard textbook definition. And I'm going, no, that makes it sound too much like my quality of compassion.
Exactly.
This is the recognition that rotten sinner that I am, rotten, terrible sinner that I'm saved by grace. And the command comes, right? Do justice, show mercy.
Yeah.
And in that doing justice, showing mercy, be courageous, right? Is the call to Christ-likeness that you hear in the beginning, say, of 2 Peter in the first chapter, where it starts talking about being a reflection of the divine image.
Reflection is where I was going to go to.
And then if you read after that verse, maybe another verse or two, it says, "Show yourself to be excellent." And the word for excellent is virtue. It's arete. Yeah. And then it says, think about these things. Yes. Think about nobility. Think about justice. Think about that. And be you excellent. And the way to excellence, right, is to, Paul, consider others better than yourselves. Yeah. Look constantly to the need of what other people have. This is what Aquinas says mercy is. And he says it impels us. It's an internal disposition toward the good. It is a way of achieving the excellence of, it's not enough to say it, but it's the excellence of being saved. Yeah. The excellence of being saved is not being, again, champion Bible quizzer. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, nerds, but whatever.
Yeah. And let's go back to fast nerds.
Yeah, fast nerds who get up off the seat. I was a nerd. Yeah, I'm doing this for the camera.
I was a slow nerd.
Yeah. But this is where it's that ability, and it requires what witness does. You have to be able to see what God is doing.
Yes.
To understand when mercy is really required.
See, and I love the way Randy Maddox deals with this whole thing by his book Responsible Grace, and he's the one that showed me how he divides the word responsible. He makes it response-able.
Yeah.
The ability to respond, so that God is always the one that acts. We are not called to have mercy. We are to reflect God's mercy.
Yeah.
We receive, if you can't be merciful, then you don't understand the mercy you're living in every breath that you take. And this is where our modern individualistic approach to the gospel falls short.
Yes.
Because so many times the message that I hear in Bible studies and in discipleship materials and stuff is be better, try harder, be gooder. And
spend more money, give more time.
And it's not us. I like the illustration. I've been using this one a lot lately, and I can't remember if I've said it on the podcast, but there's a good chance I have, because like I said, I only have 6 stories. Yeah. But the astronaut who spacewalks, and there was one that just did it recently, and you see them out in the space thing, and they've got this...
Is that George Clooney? Didn't he do that?
That's at the movie. That's not really.
I'm sorry.
But there's a tether.
Yes,
that connects
an important tether.
Very important. And in most of the movies, the tether breaks and the guy's spinning off.
Well, now that's Will Robinson, right? Isn't that danger?
You just wave goodbye as they go off into the distance. Smith. But I like to think of myself as tethered to God. Throughout the day. That when people, it's not my mercy.
Yeah.
If you're tethered to God, His mercy flows through you. We are to be conduits.
Yeah.
Of His mercy, conduits of His grace, because we're not smart enough or kind enough,
Right.
or good enough, or patient enough, or gentle enough.
So
or
to borrow from your metaphor, I'm not a science fiction person, but I like it. Okay, you remember the book clubs when we're kids in school? I can't remember the name of it, but there was always a science fiction selection. I'm going with Harry the Dirty Dog. Okay, I'm not picking the highbrow.
You didn't read Fahrenheit
Well,
450.
I get to it eventually, but it generally says just
when
tell
they
me,
make you
tell me what it says.
This is going to be on the test.
Yes, this is going to be on the test. But there's this one part of the whole tether metaphor thing is the surprise, the shock. There's always a moment where and they've gone too far, or there's a surprise, or somebody
they see the hose coming at them,
or there's somebody over there with the scissors, and I think that mercy's not quite like that, but I think that part of what saying that mercy is this quality of God's life. God says, I'll show mercy on who I'll show mercy. Mercy's my middle name. And then he says to us, do it. Show mercy, do mercy. But you realize that unless you can recognize it,
right,
unless you can see it,
right,
you don't get the full import.
Right.
That is to say, to be able to show mercy, you have to first be able to have received mercy.
to receive it.
And you have to sort of be able
modeling.
to right and watch, people be merciful to others. One of the most interesting things I've ever done was I stood in heart surgery. We had friends who were heart surgeons. I used to hang out with them. A lot of fun. And they said, you want to come to heart surgery? They wanted to impress me because, they were like, they kept making.
Well, he was impressive.
Yeah, well, he was. But they wanted me to invite them to theology class so they could, and I'm, no, it's for professionals. And they said, well, come see. So, I go in there and I see things I've never seen before. And I'm realizing, this is what real health looks like. They take your blood out and they purify it for you. Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're just making your heart a little bit better. They're giving you a new life. Yeah. I mean, people come up and say, I feel different. I feel better than I have in 30 years. Yeah. It's really, really interesting. But when you start talking about, and I look at them and I go, how? And they go, well, miracles occur. And I go, whoa, wait. You guys are getting paid for miracles. You're not in the miracle business. And they go, no, sometimes things happen we can't explain. And I go, and what's that called? And they said, healing. Mother Teresa has a vision. And God says there's people out in the dump. I don't know the right words. There are people in the gutter. And they need mercy. Go find them. I will show you. I will lead you. And she tells these stories about, we don't have a roster.
Right.
We don't have a regular route. Right, we don't have do they have, and just gallbladder, dysentery. I mean, we go down the list, right? What makes you a perfect candidate? And she says, no, God tells me to go get them, and I go get them.
That's good.
And then they come in, and it's not a place to heal them. It's a place to show mercy.
Yes.
Mother Teresa's hospital is a place where you sit with people who are dying,
yes,
who are literally walking the pathway of life, heading to another world, and you read them the Bible.
Right.
You sing the songs of Zion with them. You pray over them. They try. They give them comfort, healing, medicine. I have a friend. He says, I got to tell you this story. I said, what? He says, Mother Teresa? And I go, yeah, of course I do. Mother Teresa is this great character. She will pinch anybody for money. She goes into the office of the Washington Redskins and she asks Edward Bennett Williams, the greatest of all. And I'm a Redskin fan. I'm a Washington team. Now they have a new name, Commanders. And she goes in and he says, we don't have any money. And, it's been a hard year for us here. And she says, well, the Lord told me to come and get money. Let us pray. And so she stops and she says, dear Lord, pray. Make this man give me his money. And he says, well, thank you. And she goes, no, I'm here. I need your money. And he goes, well, it's been a rough year. He says, let us pray. And, about the fourth time, he gets out the checkbook and he writes her a check. So my friend calls me. He says, we have a friend whose daughter goes to this girls' school in Virginia, and they went on the world tour. And in order to make themselves look like good people, they decided to visit Mother Teresa. And so they're going to Taj Mahal. Yeah. They're on the boat, right?
And then Mother Teresa.
And then Mother Teresa. And so Mother Teresa receives them. They've got the video camera, remember up here on the
Yeah.
And Mother Teresa says, why are you here? Thank you for coming. And they said, well, we're a choir. We're on tour, world tour, choir. They're just some little college stuff. And she says, oh, you're here to sing. Come with me. And without asking them, she takes them into the ward, and here are these people, and their flesh is covered with sores.
Yeah.
I mean, these are rich girls from Virginia.
Yeah.
Okay? And there are people there who are risking their lives to comfort dying people.
Yeah.
And Mother Teresa says, sing. Not but a command.
Yeah.
Sing. And she says these girls kind of look at each other, and somebody goes, they don't even have the mouth. And they begin to sing. And it's the 2 or 3, I mean, they're in church, so they don't know.
Yeah.
And they're just singing these songs, and they're singing, glory to the one who has made us. Glory to the Lord above. Glory to the Lord who is present. Glory to the Lord who is love. And my friend says in this story, you can see in the video, the patients come up off the beds. They reach out to these kids. And he turns to me and he says, now tell me, Steve Hoskins, who showed mercy to who?
Yeah.
It is a quality of life
Yes.
that is a gift from God that may be the most powerful virtue. I don't want to have this discussion. I just want to talk about mercy for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Because mercy comes from singing, from bearing witness. It comes from doing justice, doing the thing that's right.
And it's so much more than forgiveness.
Oh,
But that's how we think of it a lot of times. Mercy
right.
is, I didn't get what I deserve, and you're not going to get what you deserve. We're going to get what we don't
God
deserve.
grades on the curve.
Yeah, and it's this idea of forgiveness, and it's about removing a weight off of somebody.
Yeah.
That's not what mercy is.
It's about seeing the other person suffering and not being willing to do nothing. Just to just get over whatever there is in yourself that keeps you from reaching out to a person, that keeps you from sharing what you know to be truthful and good, or to just simply be present for someone whose suffering requires that. And you have to be able to recognize where God is being merciful. You have to be able to recognize this. But then when it happens, you got to be willing to be surprised.
Well, and part of that is not all suffering happens in a gutter with people covered in sores.
That's right. No, that's true.
There's people in the rich part of town that are suffering and maybe even more hopeless. And recognizing that, we need to extend mercy every direction. It radiates.
Oh.
It radiates out of us into every direction. And sometimes it's a mercy to speak truth.
Well, and sometimes it's mercy. There's the great movie, The Mission, since you're pulling out all the stops. And, I read this and I listened to that.
You can talk about The Mission all you want.
Yeah, and
best oboe solo of all time.
Best oboe solo of all time.
Probably the only
good oboe solo of all time. Only good use of an oboe of all time.
There's a reason that a symphony orchestra tunes to the oboe.
That's true.
Because they're never going to get it right.
No.
We're just tuned to them. It'll save time.
But there's this, this grand backstory, right, before they get to the mission. And it's the story of the saint and the sinner, right? And the sinner is Robert De Niro, and he's Comanchero, and he's a cowboy, and he does bad things, and he kills people, and he robs,
kills his brother,
steals his brother's wife, all this stuff. And then he says, I want to die. And when he realizes that God's not going to kill him, the priest, Jeremy Irons, says, well, there's a road to redemption.
Yes.
And so he makes him tie the weight of his sins. If you haven't seen this, it's great.
It's so
good.
Good.
All of his armor, all of his sins, his sword, all those great symbols of the evil that he's done, and they're tied to his body. He says, you have to come on a mission with us. And they climb the falls. And in the middle of it, the other priests think that Jeremy Irons, the head priest, is being mean.
Yeah.
Right, this is getting in the way of forgiveness. It's getting in the way of mercy. It's getting in the way of happiness. Yeah. And they come to him, right, and they say, this is too hard.
Yeah.
And he recognizes what mercy is and what mercy is required.
Yeah.
Sometimes mercy is hard to recognize.
Yes.
And they say, you need to quit. And he says, who told you this was a democracy? Yeah. You know, this isn't something
That's your favorite part, isn't
no,
it?
it is. It is. It is, because I like people who want to be in charge. Let's not go there. That's called therapy. And but there, you know, there is this great sense then when there comes where, you know, he's going to serve these people. I mean, this is what you see: the suffering of another, you see the need of another, and he says, "I'm going to do it," and he won't be denied. He falls down the falls. He falls. You know, he's about dead. And he gets to the place where mercy can be shown.
Yes.
And everybody stops and nobody knows what to do.
Yeah.
Because he's almost made it.
Yeah.
And it's the people from the mission that come out with the knife.
Yes.
And they cut his sin away from him, and it falls down and it descends into the lake of God's forgetfulness, the sea of God's forgetfulness. And then all of a sudden he's free.
And he weeps.
And he weeps.
For the first time.
For the first time. He weeps bitter. But then you hear the oboe solo again. Yeah. And you know.
By the way, the oboe solo is the grace of God. If you listen
there's no
carefully.
doubt about that. It's in one of my Spotify playlists. But
the guy that wrote that, Ennio Morricone.
Yeah, he also wrote
all
Clint
these
Eastwood,
spaghetti western,
Clint Eastwood
all
western
those
movies.
spaghetti western movies and stuff. It's like I bought it. I thought because I was introduced to his music from The Mission.
Okay,
so I go buy a collection of his soundtrack thing, thinking it's all going to be like that. And the next thing you know, it's like wow, wow, wow.
Yeah,
exactly.
And all I can
like,
see is Eli Wallach's face.
It's like, I see. So The Mission was a step up for Ennio.
It really was. And I just see all the villains from the Clint Eastwood movies whenever I hear the music.
Lee Van
Cleef, yeah. But
my favorite bad guy of all time.
He was a great one. But
he made sin look good.
He did make sin look good. Well, anyway, we need to stop right there. Well, that's another podcast.
Giving him mercy.
We're going to be in trouble. But I do think that part of what we have to do in our discipleship and our witness, the ways we're talking about our prayer lives, I don't know if we have to. I don't know that we should ever pray, God, make me inclined to show mercy. But I think we ought to say, Lord, create in me a clean heart. And renew a right spirit. And part of a right
cast not your spirit away from me.
Because part of that is knowing when someone is really suffering or in need or help. And it's having that sense that the Spirit of God leading you in living the good life. And part of living the good life is to mimic God, to imitate. Paul says, "Be ye imitators of me as I imitate Christ." To consider not bad. To consider to consider the things that are most excellent. Yeah. And the things that are most excellent are the way God shows us what truth and beauty and goodness and salvation and justice and courage and fortitude. When God shows us all that, we really need to pay attention. And if we'll pay attention, not only will we learn what it's like, but I think God will lead us to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something, my friend. Right now, the world could sure use a lot of mercy. Indeed. We need to live the good life.
This is The Good Life is produced by Nathaniel Jackson and is a ministry of Hermitage Church of the Nazarene. Visit hermitagechurch.org for more information about this podcast, as well as our other podcasts, all of which are a way that we're making Christ-like disciples in the nations. Thanks for joining us, and have a blessed day.